Hey everybody, welcome back to Malts and Meeples. I am Petter, and today we are on the penultimate part of the top 100 games of all time. My apologies for my voice. My allergies have been getting to me as I've been outside a lot recently. But yes, we are going games 20 through 11. There are count it, three new games on the list. According to my spreadsheet, I suspect it's only actually two. Or not. It looks like it actually is legitimately three new games to this part of the list. Let's not keep you in suspense, though this first one is not one of the new ones. This is going to be a solo-only trick-taking game for Northwood. This is my favorite solo-only game where it feels like it shouldn't really work. You have a row of these different woodland creatures that you are trying to beat in trick taking. But to do that, you have to win a certain number of tricks. So it could be 0 tricks, could be up to 8. I believe it is. No, 0 through 7. 0 through 7 because 4 of each color. So as you're doing this, you are basically playing against the deck. You have a hand of cards. The deck flips over a card, and you need to either win or lose. But you still have to follow basic trick-taking rules, like following the same suit. But where this game works so much is that you have 4 woodland creatures that you have access to each round, and you can use their abilities to manipulate your hand, manipulate the card that you are playing against, or the card that you are playing yourself. So it's possible to just say, let's discard a whole bunch of cards from our hand to be able to get down to that 0, because I only have to play 3 tricks, 4 tricks, whatever it might be. And as you complete those objectives, you get to bring on and use one, potentially, of the leaders that you've beaten. When you pick that leader, you pick it before you really get into it, but that replaces one of the other characters that you can use, and you're still just trying to maximize and get that exact right number of tricks. It honestly feels like it shouldn't work, but it works really, really well, and there's so much variety to it as you shuffle up and deal out the leaders that you start with, the powers basically that you start with, and then the characters that you have to go against to get those tricks. That was 2019. It's also not new, but we have Marvel Champions here. This is my favorite Marvel themed game. I love how this one works as you take your hero into battle and defeat a villain before they can complete their scheme or knock out that hero. So this is a hand management, deck management game of flipping back and forth between your hero side and your alter ego side. Because, I mean, a good superhero, Peter Parker, front and center there, for example, when you're in your alter ego side, the villains know, like, okay, you're not out hunting. In fact, they don't even know who you are. So they're going to work on their scheme. This gives you a chance to heal as a character. But of course, it limits other stuff you can do. You can't really interact with the villain. You can't thwart. You can't fight. So you have to flip over to your hero side for that and go from there. But now the villain knows where you're at. They're not going to jump in and scheme anymore. Instead, they're going to be all about fighting. I really love that back and forth element to the game. I think it's a ton of fun, and yeah, for this system it just works really well and gives you that superhero feel. The other big thing about this too is it really allows you to pick and choose. Now I know some stuff is much harder to find than it had been previously. Fantasy Flight is kind of adjusting how they're doing their LCG releases, living card game releases, in particular for Marvel Champions. So some characters are out of print, but you could buy a single character or a single villain in a pack and pick them up. Or you could say, like, yeah, I don't care about getting Doctor Strange. I'll skip that one. And you could do that. Or you can just pick and choose the characters that you really want, and it works oh so well for the game. This is one that I need to play more of. It actually moved back up on the list, even though I haven't played it in the past year, just because the game is so much fun and it does really truly give you that superhero feel. Number 18 has dropped a little bit. It was 6 last year, 8 the year before. I don't know why. It's one of my favorite kind of drafting style games, but this is Floriferous. Floriferous is going to be a game where you are drafting, set collecting different flowers of different colors, and you're going to be scoring points with them. Now you score points in a couple of different ways, and one of the two ways is one of the things I really like about the game. You are drafting from columns of cards. So we have flower A, flower B, flower C, and scoring card in that D slot. If you want, you can take that scoring card. That's going to be giving you points at the end of the game, potentially. Most likely, because you probably wouldn't draft it if it isn't going to give you any points. But the further down in the column you are, the later you draft from the next column. So in a 3-player game, for example, there are 4 different columns. There's 3 flowers and the scoring column. And you decide and kind of control where you're drafting at. Now, you could always just pick the top one. You would just get flowers, though, so you wouldn't be scoring points, and you need to score points to win the game, like many a game. And it's just that nice push and pull of maybe I draft a card that isn't ideal for me because it means I can draft earlier next time and get a scoring card or a flower card that is perfect for my scoring card that's going to be perfect for the flowers that I already have. And yeah, it's a fun system, and I like games where you determine your scoring. You are picking some of how you're going to try and win the game. Floriferous does a really good job of that. Number 17, this one also had a fairly large drop, but also because I haven't played it in a while, was number 3 last year, 4 the year before that. 17 this year. Still absolutely adore the game, and I'm ready to get it back to the table because I've had so much fun with it, but I also want to share that fun with it. This is Stars of Akarios from Open Owl Studios, or it used to be Out of My Mind, or Out of Our Mind, games. But this is their big space campaign game, and the game is split into 3 parts. We're going to talk about 2 of them because 2 of them are where most of the game is. The first is this tactical space combat. You roll dice to get actions. You activate different abilities that allow your ship to turn. and move across the map, fire weapons, all sorts of different things. You're trying to get behind the enemy to be able to flank them, to deal them more damage, take them out. And the tactical missions might vary greatly. One of my favorite examples of this is you are, in the story, given a choice in a combat. You can either side with Group A, Group B, or neither. And if you side with neither, Group A and Group B are both hostile to you. But if you're smart about it, you can get far enough away, because A and B are hostile to each other, that they're always going to target each other. And if they always target each other, then you just have to come in and clean up that last one that's there, and you just hang out in the corner. It's a weird strategy, but and you can watch me play through it here on Malts and Meeples. It's a couple years ago at this point, but going through it, this was just such a unique experience, and I had fun with that fight because it was so different and it was so unique. Then there are escort missions, there are other things like that, but the tactical element is where this game really shines. Then there's also the planetary exploration. Now, the planetary exploration is a bit more like 7th Citadel or 7th Continent, where you're flipping over a card to travel there, and you're not completely sure what's going to be on there for like the different planets. But again, they do a really good job with those planets, really good job with those kind of moments that you have. There's also space exploration, which is about all you can say about space exploration. So, fun writing. I think that's one of the things too that stands out. This is a game that gives me just more fun with the story, and I'm sure there's a lot of big important things that happen in it, but it's also just entertaining and good to read that way. Number 16 was 18 last year and is now the only non-legacy version of Clank that I own. We have Clank Catacombs. Yes, I sold off the rest of my Clank. I love Clank in Space. I love Clank the adventure deck building game. But Clank Catacombs is always going to be the one now that I pick to play, because it is that much fun being able to build out your path. You go exploring, you're looking for treasure as owies. You're trying not to make too much noise, but of course, sometimes you need to make a little noise to get to where you want to go and to get those really good treasures. So the game is still just a blast to play, and the idea that you build out your own map really does take it up kind of to that next level and makes every game feel different. The others, less so for Clank in Space, because you had so many different configurations of the modules for the spaceship, but even then there were certain things that always felt the same. Here could be very different every time you play it, with how you build it out, how long corridor you make, how much you turn and double back and try and keep it condensed. That's all up to the players. Like I said, this is a fun deck building game with a push your luck element to see how far you can get in, what treasure you can grab, and can get out before you've made too much noise and you've not gotten knocked out. Another small drop this time, from 9 last year to 15 this year, is going to be another big campaign game, and that is Role Player Adventures. Much like Stars of Ikarios, this one just has that really fun story to it that is great. And it also has a really good system that you use, where you have, if you're not familiar with Role Player, you kind of create your D&D character. That's the game that Adventures is based off of. Well, here you're taking your character with their stats, again, D&D style stats. This is, by the way, number 15, if I didn't say that. And you are expending points in those stats to draw out dice of specific colors. And with those dice, you're using them to defeat enemies and complete other challenges. If you ever run out of those dice because or cubes, because you've expended them or because of damage you take, you're knocked out. But I mean, there's leveling up between the missions, just a lot of cool things. And I talk about the dice, but then you get the right colored dice, you roll them, you're probably not going to get the right numbers you need. And that's when it becomes this big puzzle of kind of hand management of what ability, what card do I play to manipulate a die so we can get the most work done possible. And with the skill challenges, you got a shot to do it. With the combats, you could have multiple rounds of combat, I think up to 3. But the longer you're in combat, the more damage you're going to be taking. Next up here, we have number 14, another trick-taking game. And this is, I said there are 3 new games on this part of the list. They are all in a row. The first one is going to be the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game. And I am very excited for the Two Towers one to come out, though I have not made it through all of the story within this one. So yes, this is a cooperative trick-taking game where you are trying to complete certain character objectives. So, for example, Frodo wants to win a certain number of ring cards or more. I think Merry wants to win the fewest tricks. Gandalf, or tied for the fewest. Gandalf wants to win either 1 or 2 tricks, something like that, or at least 1 trick. So there's a lot of different variety in this, and each scenario you go with has potentially different characters that you're interacting with, because as you go through different parts of the story, you come across Tom Bombadil. You need Tom Bombadil in that part of the game. Somebody has to play Tom. Or you make it to Bree. Bree, and Frodo's no longer there because he goes up by the name of Underhill. And so it's really cool how each round goes. It's also really cool how well it's tied into the story of Lord of the Rings. Just one that works so well for me. And I love the cooperative nature of it with a really strong, good trick-taking system that doesn't try to overcomplicate everything. So you're really focused in on those different objectives that you have. Number 14. Nope, that was 14. Number 13 is actually one that I've only played on BGA. And I have played so many games of it on BGA this year, and I absolutely adore it. This is Pirates of Maracaibo. I do own it, so I need to get played in person as well. But this is a sailing across the seas game. You do it over 3 times, activating different locations that might allow you to explore. And exploring gets you things like gold or victory points or treasure or quests that you can go on. And the further you explore, the more points you get. Or you might loot for treasure, so you roll die, and then you activate some different abilities. So you roll a die and you kind of calculate your fight. You can get a pearl or a emerald, bar of gold, whatever it might be, depending on the color of the die, for 5 pips worth on that die. But as you go to these spots and get into combats to gain these treasures, you also are upgrading your ship, and you're deciding how you upgrade your ship to make it again work for your strategy. Because let's say I have a quest that wants me to have hired, I haven't even mentioned that, you can hire crew or get cargo or add a card that's going to give you some benefit to your ship. And so there might be something that says, okay, you need to have 3 crew on your ship. That's going to get you 3 points. But if you get to 5 crew on your ship, that's going to get you 7 points at the end of the game. And so it's balancing all these in-game and out-of-game or end-of-game scoring things. And I have not played it with the expansion. There's an expansion that gives you captains that I'm really excited to try. Captains and cannons, basically. And the captains are going to keep you a little bit more asymmetric at the start, which I love. We'll talk more about asymmetric and kind of how that might be very important in certain situations, as well as then it's going to give you basically more to do with fighting, which I appreciate as well. I think that there's going to be a lot of fun stuff for this, and I can't wait to teach and show some people how to play this game. My my number 12 is the one that I'm had to look up to make sure wasn't on the list previously. I think it was just because of my timing of when I rated it that it missed out last year. But this is going to be Myst, the deck building game. Yes, another deck building game. I've had 2 campaign games, 2 deck building games, and 2 trick-taking games on this section of the list. Those are some of my favorite types of games. So Mistborn is based off of the Brandon Sanderson series of books, Mistborn. And in that series, it's all about these characters who can burn different metals within their body that will activate different abilities. There's a lot of them can only burn a specific metal or like a specific pair of metals. So basically there's always a equal and opposite reaction metal that you can burn. Well, others are Mistborn and they can burn all the different types of metals. So this game works off of kind of that system where you're playing out a card. You play out a card, you have to play out a metal to burn with it. And some cards don't. I'm trying to remember. I think all cards do have metals that you burn on them. Not necessarily all of them. You can get companions, those stay out. But this is a game, and this is a competitive game that you can play cooperatively, and I like the co-op mode. You can also do co-op mode solo, which I played here on the channel, against the Lord Ruler of the Final Empire. If I remember, I think I have that right. But, excuse me. But, in the competitive and like the normal version of the game, you're either trying to knock everybody else out, or you're trying to go up certain tracks, and if you can make it to the top of all the tracks, then you win the game. Basically, you've completed enough glory for what it's worth. And so this is not a deck building game, say like Clank Catacombs, where you're seeing who has the most points at the end of the game. There's going to be a winner when you're done. Like when the game is over, you know who won. The tracks are great because they give you powers and abilities. Generally, like more money or more fighting. Kind of the standard stuff you expect for a deck building game. The combat is interesting. Like, the combat doesn't feel as strong as it might in some games, but there's a really fun element to it that is very King of Tokyo-esque. So somebody at the table is going to have the target on them. Whoever has the target on them, when somebody attacks, that attack goes to that player. That player then has a choice. Do they keep the target, or do they pass it on to somebody else? If they keep the target and they keep it to their turn and they attack, they hit everybody. And so, like I said, very King of Tokyo-esque. But this game, like, the deck building, the tracks, the combat, all fun. One part that really sings to me too, though, is the escalation in this game. So at the start of the game, you can burn a medal. You have access to all of them, but you can burn a medal, and if you want to flare it, they call, basically put a little extra into it, you can burn a second medal. But that second medal you have to kind of refresh by discarding a card of that type to get it back, to be able to use it again. But as you progress, you start to gain benefits like, oh, here's an additional, like, I can burn an additional medal now. Oh, I can burn 2 additional medals now. Or, this is the other thing that is fun. You don't have to burn one of the medals that kind of make up your display in front of you. You can also burn a medal. So say I burn tin. Tin's one of the medals. I burn tin. I don't have to use the tin token. I can instead place a card that has tin on it as the card that I used, or as the tin that I used to power it. You don't lose that card or anything like that. You're just not going to be able to use it that turn. But that's a way early game you can start to play more things. But as the game goes on, it really does escalate very quickly. And I like that a lot. The number 11 on the list, this one is up 21 spots, 32 last year, 14 the year before that. So it's come back up. And this is a big open world sandbox kind of story game, Sleeping Gods. This one I think just came back up because I have a lot of fond memories from having played it. Granted, I didn't play it perfectly. I never claimed to on my streams, but the story in this game is a ton of fun. And yes, it's bits and pieces of a story that you pick what missions you want to go on. You pick what artifacts, I don't think they're called artifacts, you want to activate. And sure, there are elements of this that do feel a bit more complex. You're having to keep track of, well, if you're playing it solo, the abilities on 9 different crew members. But I found that was not super difficult to do because a lot of the times the abilities were fairly similar. They give you access to a symbol. They allowed you to re-roll. They allowed you to remove something. And so you just had to kind of keep track of that. But there's this really fun tension system of activating characters, but the more you activate them, you eventually can't anymore, and you have to find a spot to rest and remove them, those activation tokens, as well as activating the ship. The ship, I think, sometimes allows you to remove some of those activation tokens, but also the ship is potentially taking damage, and so you might lose spots, have those blocked off. Just a lot of fun. And yes, you do have to play with the 9 characters. And I do need to try Distant Skies. I have it sitting here waiting for me to play. Just haven't gotten to it yet. But Distant Skies is the second version of this. And there's a third-esque version of this, Songs of Silveranth, I believe it is, that is currently crowdfunding now, that I'm very interested in backing, because I'd love to see how this system continues to progress. And even though it's set in a different kind of universe than Sleeping Gods, I'm excited to see what that one has. So let's just run through everything again here. At number 20, we have For Northwood, a solo trick-taking game. 19, Marvel Champions. You get to play as heroes trying to take down the villains while bouncing and bouncing back and forth between your secret identity and your hero side. 18 is Floriferous, a drafting game of building out your best bunch of flowers and drafting scoring. Stars of Ikarios is a big tactical fighting game of epic space battles within planetary exploration, and a ton of story in this campaign experience. Number 16 is Clank Catacombs, a deck building push your luck game of trying to get in, get treasure, and get out, all while trying to get the most total points, and of course not getting knocked out. Because if you get knocked out deep in the catacombs, you just lose. Role Player Adventures comes in at number 15. This is a dice manipulation, hand management, story-driven campaign experience of a game that is really a lot of fun. Gives you kind of that RPG, choose your own adventure style feel. Then at 14, our first new game, the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game. This is a trick-taker based off of the Fellowship of the Ring, and diving into that story. Ton of fun. You really do get to experience the books. Number 13 is Pirates of Maracaibo, a pirate-y, exploration-y game of sailing the seas, gaining resources, that are worth points, and improving your ship. And number 12, Mistborn, the deck building game. This one is going to be based off of, like I said, Brandon Sanderson's series, and you're expending metals to be able to defeat your opponent, either by making it to the top of some tracks first, or by knocking them out. And finally, number 11, we have Sleeping Gods. This is an open world story adventure game where you are looking for different relics and experiencing the story and adventure around them. So there we have it. 1 week left. Top 10 games of all time. And I will give you just a tiny preview. There is one brand new game to the list. So you'll have to join then next week to find out what that might be. I really appreciate everybody who's checking out these videos and joining in. If you're enjoying this content, please subscribe to the channel. Click that notification bell. That's going to be the best way to know when we go live. It might be a couple weeks before we are back to Baldur's Gate 3. And I do plan to work on getting back to streaming on Mondays as well. But, of course, like I said, click that notification bell. That's going to let you know when we go live. And there's a large back catalog of videos to watch. You can even catch up on previous parts of the top 100 games of all time, or previous years of the top 100 games of all time. You can also check out nerdologist.com, where I'm writing articles, not daily, but most days, about nerdy things, whether that be board games, RPGs, anything like that. And finally, if you do enjoy Marvel, like as much as I love Marvel, and Marvel Champions obviously was on this part of the list, if you enjoy Marvel, you can check out my podcast, 10 Minute Marvel. You can find that here on YouTube. Just search for 10 Minute Marvel, or search for it wherever you get your friendly neighborhood podcasts from. But with that, bottoms up.